Mr. Korab, thank you very much for joining us today, and welcome to the Instigators.
Well, nice to be with you guys.
Well, we ask you first. I ask you first. I'm fascinated by nicknames. Okay, like Craig's nickname is, well, as you know, Craig Rive, and we call him Riv, very original.
Riv.
Marty is Martin Biron. You know, we call him Marty. Your name is Jerry Korab, and your nickname is King Kong. Now, would you care to elaborate?
Well, first of all, the funny thing about having a nickname is that people are very unaware of everybody that played on a certain team, whether it was the Sabres or someone else. When you're in the dressing room, if they heard you talking about the different players, they would definitely have no idea who you're talking to, because everybody has a nickname. And to this day, a lot of people wonder why people get these names. But anyways, there's a reason behind all of them. My reason is that I was given that name by my first game that I played in the National Hockey League against the Boston Bruins. And I got in an altercation with Derek Sanderson. And unfortunately, we know who won that fight. But anyways, after the game in the dressing room, one of the reporters asked Derek Sanderson, what happened on ice? Who was this new kid on the block that came there and kind of taught you a lesson on fighting? And he says, well, I don't know. He said, but when I looked up, I saw this person coming. He says, you look like a gorilla. And the reporter said, you mean like King Kong? And he said, yes, like King Kong. So from day one till today, that's how I got that name.
Well, you know what? I got to tell you, no better person to get a nickname from than Mr. Sanderson.
That's right.
Right?
I end up being a good friend for up until today. Actually, we're still friends and we still talk.
Are you really? I mean, he has an amazing story.
Oh, he's quite a guy. If you sit down with him, I mean, you could sit there for a couple of days and never get bored on the stories that he could tell you.
No, but do people still call you King Kong around, or do you go more with your more official name, Jerry, as you walk around now these days?
Well, if you call me Jerry, I probably wouldn't even answer you.
Oh, really?
Everybody, all my friends I know and former teammates just call me Kong.
Kong, yeah.
That's it. I mean,
go ahead.
Yeah, that's it. No, they call me Kong. Like I said, if they call me Jerry, I don't even know who they're talking to.
All right. Thanks for telling us that, Jerry. So we're joined right now by Jerry Korab. What's that?
I can't talk to you. You call me Jerry.
Yeah, sorry. So Jerry's on the line here, eh? Thanks for calling in, Jerry. Started with the Chicago Blackhawks in 70-71, played 3 seasons there, went to Vancouver, and you were and then sent to Buffalo. Talk about being moved from Vancouver to Buffalo and your first introduction to your team.
Well, to go one step further, actually, this year is 50 years since I played my first game in the NHL. So it was 50 years ago this year. But anyways, my move from Vancouver to Buffalo was probably the best one. And the fact is that when Punch Imlach was the general manager and the Sabres came into the league, he had wanted me at that time when they first came into the league. Unfortunately, the Sabres did not have a goalie, and that's when they ended up getting Dryden on a deal with the Chicago Blackhawks. And I ended up going to the Hawks, and, of course, Dryden was their goalie for the Sabres. So, unfortunately, years later, I ended up in Vancouver, and I get traded to Buffalo for Tracy Pratt, John Gould, and one other player. I can't remember who he was right now. But once I got to Buffalo, the story continues that Punch Imlach back in those days had his own talk show. Of course, I was his guest the next day when I got there. He was going on saying in 1970 when the Sabres came into the league, he said, I really wanted you then. He said, but we had to make a deal that we didn't have a goalie. And he said, well, we finally got you. And I said to Punch, I said, well, are you happy that I finally got here? He says, this is my show. I'll ask the question.
What was he like as a coach? I mean, you hear so many different mixed emotions about coaches in that era. What was Punch Imlach like?
Very smart, shrewd. He had a little temper. He'd get very upset. You know, he he only had one thing on his mind, like the rest of us, is winning. And of course, when you're a new team in the National Hockey League, he took on a big job, and very knowledgeable. I mean, I loved him. He had a great personality, but I'll tell you what, when you didn't have a good game, you certainly heard about it, and you were in his office the next day.
Well, you guys, when you first came here, from the second year on, you made the playoffs every year. You went to the finals the next year. I mean, you must have had a pretty good squad.
Oh, our team was awesome, and we had the French connection. I mean, we probably the year we went to the finals and lost to Philadelphia, we possibly could have had the best team in the National Hockey League at that time. And unfortunately, we ran into a hot goaltender with Philadelphia, and
that was the last hot goaltender Philadelphia had. I say that because Marty's here, right? And Marty played for Philly.
Yeah, I brought down Bernie Perrant, and the headlines back then was kind of funny. Is Perrant sold his soul to the devil. That's how well he was playing, and it was unfortunate. I mean. You go back and you look at some of the records there. Of course, not as many as they keep today. But I believe the first game we played in Philadelphia, we outshot them like 42-12 or something, and we lost 2-1. Then we lost 3-2. I mean, every game was so close, and the big difference was goaltending.
I have to. I'm looking at your statistics here in Buffalo. They're mind-boggling. You had 1 year, you had 12 goals, 56 points, added in 184 penalty minutes, and I'm reading up on
all minors.
Reading up on the Wikipedia, and they're saying that obviously your size and your reputation was a physical defenseman, and they say you possessed a hard shot and some offensive ability. I want this guy. Who's the person writing this Wikipedia? You had 455 points and 114 goals in 975 games. That today would be considered an offensive defenseman in the NHL. What was your, looking at your statistics here in Buffalo, was there a certain year that stuck out to you that you really remembered as being a lot of fun?
Well, don't take me wrong here. Every year was a great year in Buffalo for me, and I just loved the way we played. I loved the teams. Unfortunately, like I said, we lost to Philadelphia. That would have been the icing on the cake. But that was probably, I think, the best year for everyone that year. We went to the finals. Everyone had good years. I think Danny Garrett scored 50 goals. Rico had 49. I mean, everybody, our defensive core was big, tough, and strong. We intimidated a lot of people. I'd have to say that year when we went to the finals, everybody enjoyed that. Of course, getting up, the fans were going crazy. The building was just rocking when the national anthem played. The concrete on the ice was shaking every game we played there when the national anthem came on. It was amazing. So, that year, and then also one of the biggest games I think we ever had, one game in particular was against the Russians. And going back to Punch, I can remember him. I have a picture with him after the game celebrating. But before the game, he came walking in the room, and everybody just got silent, and he says, "Listen, I don't care what we do the rest of the year. We got to win this game tonight." And we did. And we hit them pretty bad. We set a record in the loss column for the Russians that ever they accepted. I think we beat them 12-3 or 11-2 or something. It was amazing.
Now, as Rivs pointed out, you had a big shot, and I'm always fascinated to ask players that played with wooden stick, because now the sticks are so different. They're all composite, and everybody's got a good shot in the National Hockey League right now because of the way the sticks and the technology can shoot the puck. Now, what was your stick like, either the angle and the curve, and to be able to get that big shot that was feared back in the days?
Well, and we're going back in time here. When I broke in with the Chicago Blackhawks, of course, Bobby Hull had one of the most feared shots in the National Hockey League throughout his whole career. And we used to stay out on the ice after practice, and I used to practice with Bobby and, wrist shots and slap shots. And he kind of taught me, how to get your weight behind the puck, and of course, most of the times we didn't have too much control over it. It was hard. It was hard like Bobby's, and when it hit the glass, you knew about it. And one of the things I did do is back then is I ended up using the same stick model that Bobby Hull used, and I kind of used that the rest of my career everywhere I went. Of course, the names changed, from Northland Pro back in the day to Sherwood to Canadian to, whatever we ended up with. But I still use the same type of model of stick that I started with in 1970.
Wow.
Let's ask the more important question. Was there a brand of cigarettes that you smoked back then? Because it seemed like everybody in the 70s when they were playing had an ashtray in their stall.
Marlboro Light.
He did. So did you come off? What was top priority? Get your skates off first, or light up a dart?
A lot of people don't believe it when you tell them that. When I came to Buffalo in the 70s, in our stalls, we had ashtrays.
Yep.
And it was kind of funny. I mean, we smoked right in the room. And so, even some of the coaches, Floyd Smith, he used to come in with a cigarette in his mouth. And back then, the coaches even smoked. So, and then up until 1980, well, there was no more ashtrays in the lockers. You couldn't smoke in the dressing room. And if you really wanted to smoke real bad, you either went into the washroom or the toilets were, and you sat in there and had one. Of course, they knew you were smoking. You could see the smoke coming out of there. And then from the toilets, we went to the skate sharpening room where the trainers were. Then after that, it was like there was nowhere else to go. There was only a couple of guys that smoked back then, so everything changed.
How were the road trips? Because you were one of the guys that liked to wear a little bit of style and go out, and look good after the game.
Mr. Korab, I heard you rocked a lot of plaid back in the day.
Well, I might wear one of those on Saturday night for you.
So how were the road trips? Hanging out with the boys on the road if you had a game in Chicago or in New York or in Montreal or whatnot? Like how was that time period, and how were the boys all hanging out together and making sure they were a family and a team together?
Well, every team that I played on through my career, we always dressed good. We dressed sharp. Always. Everybody, not just myself, everybody. And one thing that we always did was we kind of bonded when we were on the road. Certainly, if we went to New York City or we were in Los Angeles, St. Louis, it didn't matter which major city we played in. We always seemed to find the finest restaurant to go to. And, we had at that time kind of spoiled because, being professional athletes in the NHL, we had access to all these places and these famous restaurants. Really enjoyed, different athletes coming there, especially our team or the hockey players. They loved us. Didn't matter where we went. It wasn't hard to get a reservation. But we ate and dined at the finest restaurants, and most of the time it was, if it wasn't the whole team, it was at least three-quarters.
Yeah.
How was Studio 54?
I believe. Hey, you know what? The world changes. I did go there once, and believe it or not, where I live now in Florida, in West Palm Beach, I have a friend here that was the owner of Studio 54. How's that?
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Does he remember you guys rolling in there and all
Oh,
all the shenanigans and antics that you guys used to get into?
Oh, he knows all kinds of guys. Bobby Nystrom, Clark Gillies. Of course, he was from New York, and he knew a lot of the Islanders. Rod Gilbert, all the guys from the Rangers back in the day. Very familiar with all of them. Phil Esposito. I mean, I can go on and on, but Marty was quite the guy, and he was one of the owners of Studio 54. Kind of cool.
Hey, what was the hangout here in Buffalo? Where would you guys go? Because you guys, listen, let's be honest. Back in the day, you guys would leave practice, and you'd go have lunch, and I don't know what you'd have more, lunch or beers.
Well, we had the chicken wings. The original place was a place right across from the airport back in the day. It was called the Airdrome. I don't even know if it's still there, but that was our hangout after practices. And, of course, over the years, we changed many places. Seriously, not being facetious, I think there's not a restaurant or bar that we haven't been in Buffalo, and we enjoyed every minute of it.
What was the relationship like with the Bills at the time? Did you guys know any of the Bills players?
Going back in the day, actually, we knew O.J. Simpson. You know, we used to meet him at a bar in it's called Mulligan's on Hurdle, and that's where a lot of the football players hung out. And that's where, with Danny Gare, who knew O.J. More than most of us, but introduced him, met him. Quite a nice guy. Of course, things changed over the years, and Kelly, he used to have the place where Jim Schoenfeld used to have his bar and restaurant. Kelly took that over and made it his bar.
Yeah.
You know, a few of the guys. I'm not really a big football guy, but I do follow them.
Any of your teammates that you've kept in touch over the years that you'll be happy to see here on Saturday night when all the gang and all the group gets back together?
Oh, definitely. I was in town this year for the Sabre alumni golf outing.
Yep.
And I got to see a lot of the guys, Don Lucen, Craig Ramsey, Danny Gare, Rennie, some of the guys that weren't there, unfortunately, but I will get to see my defensive partner for 7 years, who I haven't seen in about 14 years, Jim Schoenfeld.
Yeah, Shoney. He hasn't been back in a while, so it'll be interesting to see how Shoney's back here. And I don't know if he was like that back in the days, but I had him as an assistant coach with the New York Rangers. And Shoney, he's quick-witted. He's got a reply for everything.
And he's the guy that did your Wikipedia page, apparently.
Yeah, I think so. And the truth is, he wasn't coming in for the event on Saturday. And when he found out I was coming, he said, "You know what?" He says, "Hey, Kong's coming. There's no way that guy's going to get introduced by himself, and I'm not going to be there with him."
Got to tell him to wear a turtleneck, though. Did you tell him that turtlenecks were not cool back then?
I'm wearing a turtleneck.
Hey,
I swear to God, I'm wearing a turtleneck Saturday night.
you have to pick one: a turtleneck or a mustache. What are you keeping?
The mustache.
Yeah, I figured as much. Jerry Korab, King Kong Korab, thank you very much for your time. And I know, just based on Twitter and your legacy here in Buffalo, that you will be very well received when you walk out on the ice on Saturday night. So thank you very much for your time today, sir.
Well, I appreciate it, and I just want to let all the listeners know there that I still consider Buffalo my home.
Says the guy in Florida.
That's right. But I still,
But
I
not,
still
but
love
not
Buffalo.
in November, December, January, February, and March, eh? When it's 80 down.
That's okay, though. But Buffalo's still my home.
Yeah, no, they love you here too, and appreciate your time. And again, enjoy Saturday night. I know you and all your teammates will definitely have a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be great. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming on today, Jerry Korab, also known as King Kong.